This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Mike Dawson. I'm 38, a software engineer living a pretty normal life in suburban California with my wife Sarah and our 5-year-old son Chloe. I'm the kind of guy who loves a good laugh, enjoys tinkering with code, and takes pride in being a dad. Sarah says I'm a bit of a goofball, always ready with a dumb joke or a playful nudge to get Chloe out of his shell. Life's been good. Steady job, happy family, solid group of friends from college who've stuck around even as we've all hit that age where kids and mortgages take over. But normal? Yeah, that went out the window the day I walked into an engagement party and got screamed at by my old friend Emma, who accused me of torching her marriage with a single stupid joke. I stood there, beer in hand, jaw on the floor, as she tore into me in front of everyone, friends, strangers, the engaged couple, claiming I'd ruined her life. It was the kind of moment where time slows down, and you feel every eye in the room burning into you, judging, waiting for you to say something. I didn't even know where to start. Let me back up. This whole mess kicked off about a year ago on a sunny Saturday at our local pool. It was one of those perfect summer days, blue sky, warm breeze, the smell of sunscreen and chlorine in the air. Sarah, Chloe, and I got there early, snagging a prime spot right by the shallow end. I'd packed my usual bag of pool toys, water pistols, inflatable rings, the works. Chloe's an only kid, and I've always worried he might turn out shy or selfish if I don't nudge him to play with others. So I over-prepare. I buy extras of everything, 2 guns, 3 cars, whatever, just so he can share and make friends. It's worked like a charm at playgrounds and beaches, and I've gotten to know a lot of the neighborhood parents that way. That day, I was crouched by the water, blasting Chloe with a water pistol, doing my over-the-top world domination bit. Think evil villain laugh, arms raised, the whole deal. He was giggling like crazy, soaking me back, when this kid Benny ran up. Benny's in Chloe's kindergarten class, a scrappy little guy with messy brown hair and a grin that screams trouble. His mom, Jen, waved from a few chairs over. She's a friend of Sarah's, the kind of mom who's always got a coffee in hand and a sarcastic quip ready. Benny pointed at the spare water gun in my bag, eyes wide, and I tossed it to him with a grin. "Join the fight, soldier," I said, and just like that, the 2 boys were off, shrieking and splashing like they'd been best buds forever. Sarah tapped me on the shoulder, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, sunglasses perched on her nose. "I'm going for a swim," she said, already peeling off her cover-up. "Jen's coming too. You good watching the kids?" I gave her a thumbs up, leaning back in my chair, feet dangling in the water. "I've got this," I said, smirking as I watched Chloe and Benny turn the shallow end into a war zone. I was in my element, sun on my face, cold soda in hand, the sound of kids laughing filling the air. Then Emma showed up. I hadn't seen her in a while, maybe a few months. Emma Carter, my old college roommate, the girl who'd once stayed up with me cramming for finals, splitting cheap ramen at 3 a.m. She's 39 now, married to Tom, with 2 kids of her own, a boy and a girl. She's always been late to everything, a running joke in our group, and that day was no exception. She rolled in with her kids in tow, her red bikini catching the light, a big beach bag slung over her shoulder. Her hair was a wild tangle of blonde curls, and she flashed me that familiar grin as she dropped her stuff next to mine. "Mike Dawson, savior of summer," she teased, eyeing my pile of toys. I laughed, tossing her kids a couple of floaties. "Only the best for my minions," I said, winking. She settled in, chatting about nothing, work, the heat, how Tom was out of town on some business trip. It felt easy, like old times. Then Benny sprinted over, dripping wet, pointing at a neon green water blaster in my bag. "Can I have that one?" he asked, bouncing on his toes. I handed it over with a shrug. "Go nuts, kid." Emma watched him run off, then turned to me with a sly smile. "God, he's so cute. Looks just like you, Mike." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Okay, cool, but he's not mine." It was funny. Benny did kind of resemble me, same brown eyes and goofy grin, but it was just a coincidence. When Sarah and Jen came back, toweling off, I told them what Emma said, and they cracked up. "Maybe you've got a secret poolside family we don't know about," Sarah quipped, elbowing me. We all laughed, and that was that, or so I thought. Fast forward a few months. Our friend group, mostly couples with kids now, had a barbecue at Jake Monroe's place. Jake's one of those guys who never grew out of his college frat vibe, 39, built like a linebacker, always wearing tank tops and flip-flops. His backyard was packed, kids running wild, adults sipping beers, music blasting. I was on my second trip to the car, juggling Chloe's toys and a stack of Tupperware, when I spotted Emma and Tom by the door. Tom's a big guy, 40, all sharp suits and serious vibes, the kind of dude who looks like he's always calculating something. I barely knew him outside these group hangouts. He'd always kept me at arm's length, which I figured was just his personality. Emma was grabbing her bag, and I yelled over to Tom, "Hey, can you call Sarah and Chloe out? Just make sure it's actually my kid, not some random one who looks like me." I laughed, thinking it was a solid callback to the pool day. Tom froze, his jaw tightening. Emma's smile vanished. The air went thick, like I'd just dropped a bomb instead of a joke. "What the hell are you talking about?" Tom snapped, his voice low and hard. I blinked, caught off guard. Just a dumb story from the pool," I said, fumbling. "Emma thought this kid looked like me. It was funny." He didn't laugh. Neither did Emma. They just stared at me, and I felt my stomach twist. "Okay, see you guys," I muttered, hightailing it to the car. Sarah raised an eyebrow when I told her. "That was weird," she said, but we shrugged it off. I didn't hear from Emma after that. I texted her a couple days later. "Hey, everything okay?" No reply. Tried again a week after that, same deal. I figured she was pissed about the joke, maybe thought it was tacky, and I wasn't about to push it. If she didn't want to talk, fine. I had no clue how bad it had gotten until the engagement party. Jake was getting hitched to his girlfriend, Claire, a sweet kindergarten teacher who somehow put up with his chaos. It was a kid-free night, all adults, at this swanky venue downtown, string lights twinkling overhead, an open bar buzzing with laughter, the works. I wasn't planning to go. Chloe had a cold, his little nose red and sniffly, and I was wiped from a brutal week at work debugging code that refused to cooperate. But Sarah insisted I get out, her dark eyes glinting with that mix of mischief and care she's always had. "Go have fun, you hermit," she teased, shoving me out the door with a playful smack on the arm. "I've got the kiddo. Don't come back before midnight or I'll lock you out." I grumbled but grabbed my jacket, figuring a couple beers might shake off the fog in my head. I showed up late, slipping into the venue with my tie loosened, snagging a cold one from the bar, and nodding at some old college buddies, guys I hadn't seen in months, all sporting dad bods and tired smiles now. The place was alive, music pulsing low, conversations overlapping in a warm hum. Then I saw Emma across the room. She was in a sleek black dress, hair pulled back tight, standing by the dessert table with a glass of wine she wasn't drinking. She looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, shoulders stiff, eyes distant. I hadn't talked to her since that awkward night at Jake's barbecue a few months back, when my dumb pool joke landed like a grenade. I figured she'd cooled off by now, maybe even laughed about it. Our eyes met, and for a split second, I thought about waving, giving her a sheepish grin to test the waters. But her face shifted, blank to furious in a heartbeat, like I'd just flipped a switch. Before I could process it, she stormed over, heels clicking sharp against the hardwood floor, her wine sloshing as she closed the distance. I barely had time to lower my beer before she let loose. "You asshole!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. The room didn't go silent, not quite, but heads turned, conversations faltered. I felt the heat of eyes on me, my throat tightening. "You think you can just waltz in here after what you did? You ruined my marriage, Mike." Her words hit me like a punch, and I stood there dumbstruck, beer halfway to my mouth, my brain scrambling to catch up. What are you talking about?" I stammered, my heart thudding hard enough I could feel it in my ears. She stepped closer, close enough I could smell her perfume, something floral and sharp, and jabbed a finger at my chest. "That stupid joke at Jake's? Tom flipped out. He thought I was screwing you, that I'd been lying to him for years. We're separated now, and it's your fault." Her voice cracked, raw and jagged, and I saw tears glinting in her eyes, but they didn't fall. My beer hit the table with a clunk, my hands up like I could fend off the accusation. "Emma, I had no idea. I was just joking," I started, but she cut me off, her volume climbing. "Don't play dumb. You humiliated me, and now everyone knows my life's a wreck because of you." The air around us thickened, people shifting closer, pretending not to stare. I felt sweat bead on my neck, my shirt sticking to my back despite the air conditioning. Then Lila Hayes stepped in, her presence like a storm cloud rolling over the scene. Lila's Emma's best friend from way back, 38, a divorce lawyer with a razor-sharp wit and a wardrobe of power suits. She'd always been cool with me in college, swapping sarcastic barbs over beers, but now her green eyes sliced through me like I was a case she'd already won. "Save it, Mike," she said, crossing her arms, her voice cool and clipped. You've always acted so innocent, but I know how close you and Emma were back then. Don't pretend you didn't know what you were doing." I gaped at her, my mouth dry. "Know what? It was a joke, Lila. I didn't mean—" She smirked, cutting me off. "Sure, a joke that just happened to blow up her life. Convenient." Jake shoved through the crowd then, his broad shoulders parting the gawkers like a linebacker breaking a line. "Okay, let's all chill, huh?" he said, his voice loud but strained, his usual grin nowhere in sight. "It's my night. Don't ruin it." He clapped a hand on my shoulder, firm, like he was trying to ground me, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Claire hovered behind him, her soft brown eyes flicking between me and Emma, her lips pressed tight. I just turned their celebration into a circus, and the guilt hit me like a wave. "I'm sorry," I said to Emma, my voice shaking, barely audible over the murmur of the room. "I didn't mean any of this," she scoffed, turning her head away, her blonde curls bouncing like they were dismissing me too. I couldn't breathe right, my chest was tight, my face burning. I muttered a quick congrats to Jake and Claire, barely meeting their eyes, and bolted for the door, the cool night air hitting me like a slap as I stumbled outside. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring past, my hands gripping the wheel too hard. Sarah was on the couch when I got in, a glass of red wine in hand, Chloe's snores drifting from down the hall. She took one look at my face, pale, pinched, probably looking like I'd seen a ghost, and sat up straight. "What the hell happened?" she asked, her tone half worried, half excited, like she could smell the drama already. I dropped next to her, head in my hands, and spilled it all. Emma's outburst, Lila's accusations, the way the party turned into a firing squad with me as the target. Sarah listened, sipping her wine, her lips twitching like she was fighting a smile. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "Holy shit, Mike. You accidentally broke up a marriage? That's next-level Reddit gold." I groaned, shoving a cushion over my face. "It's not funny. She hates me. Jake and Claire hate me. I'm the bad guy now." She tugged the cushion away, her grin breaking free. "You couldn't have known Tom would lose his shit like that. But damn, I wish I'd been there with popcorn." I glared at her, but her laugh, bright, unapologetic, cracked through my misery a little. "You're awful," I muttered, and she patted my knee. "Yep, go shower. You smell like shame and cheap beer." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, Emma's words looping in my head. "Ruined my marriage. Your fault." I kept seeing her face twisted with anger, and Lila's smirk, like she knew something I didn't. I felt sick, guilty, confused. Had I missed something? Was that joke really the match that lit this fire, or was there more I didn't see? By morning, I was a wreck, bags under my eyes, coffee barely keeping me upright. Then the doorbell rang. Sarah peeked out the window, her grin back in full force. "Oh, this is going to be good. It's Emma." My stomach plummeted. "What?" I hissed, but she was already opening the door, her glee palpable. Emma stood there, no makeup, eyes red and puffy, her blonde hair a mess under a hoodie. She looked smaller than last night, fragile, but her jaw was set tight. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low, urgent. I glanced at Sarah, who waved me off like I was a kid heading to detention. "Go on, hero. I'll be here when it blows up in your face." I wanted to argue, but Emma's stare pinned me, and I followed her out, my pulse racing like I was walking into a trap. We ended up at the park across the street, sitting on a splintered bench, the morning sun barely cutting through the fog. Kids shouted in the distance, a dog barked, but it all felt muffled, like the world was holding its breath. "I'm sorry I yelled," she started, staring at the ground, her hands twisting in her lap. "But you don't get it, Mike. Tom's gone. He thinks we had an affair. He won't even talk to me." Her voice trembled and I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. "Emma, I swear I didn't mean—" She held up a hand, sharp, silencing me. "Just listen. There's stuff you don't know." And then it poured out, a flood I couldn't stop. She'd loved me in college, loved me, like movie montage, heart on her sleeve loved me. She'd been there when my dad died, sitting with me through nights I couldn't sleep, bringing me coffee when I was drowning in grief. She thought I'd see it eventually, that I'd turn to her and we'd be something. When I met Sarah, started dating her, she buried it, or tried to. She married Tom, but he knew. He'd found old letters she'd never sent, ramblings about me from years back, and he'd never let it go. He'd banned her from seeing me alone, kept her on edge about it. That day at the pool, She'd gone on purpose, knowing he'd hate it, because he was off banging his assistant in some hotel. My joke at Jake's was the breaking point. Tom thought I was taunting him, flaunting an affair that never happened. But then she dropped the real bomb. She'd let him believe it. She'd told friends we'd hooked up that I'd chased her after she ended it, painting me as some obsessive creep to get back at Tom for his cheating. I sat there, my coffee forgotten, cold in my hand, my jaw slack. "You... what? You used me?" I said, my voice cracking, anger bubbling up hot and fast. She looked up, tears streaking her face, her eyes pleading. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, but your text last night, apologizing, it made me realize you're the only one who cares. We can still be friends, right?" I stared at her, this woman I'd trusted, laughed with, leaned on, and felt something break inside me. "No," I said, standing up, my legs shaky but my voice steady. "You don't get to do this. You lied to me, to everyone, and dragged me through your mess. I'm done." Her mouth opened, a sob catching in her throat, but I didn't wait. I turned and walked away, my chest tight, my head spinning with betrayal. Back home, Sarah was waiting, sprawled on the couch, her wine glass empty now. "Well?" she asked, eyebrows raised, practically vibrating with anticipation. I collapsed next to her, the words tumbling out. Emma's confession, the lies, the whole twisted game she'd played. Sarah whistled low, shaking her head. "That's some soap opera bullshit. I told you not to text her." I managed a weak laugh, exhaustion settling into my bones. "Yeah, you did." She slid closer, resting her head on my shoulder. "You're an idiot, but you're my idiot. She's nuts, Mike. Let her go." I nodded, staring at the wall, still reeling. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. A couple days later, I got a call from Jake. I was at work, hunched over my laptop, trying to focus on a bug that wouldn't die, when my phone buzzed. "Dude," he said, his voice low, like he was sneaking the call. "You need to know something. Lila's been talking shit about you, saying she's got proof you and Emma were a thing back in the day. Photos or something. Emma's feeding her the story." My stomach sank, a cold sweat breaking out. "Photos? What photos?" I asked, my voice tight. "I don't know, man," he said. "But Claire's pissed. She thinks I should have kicked you out last night. I'm trying to smooth it over, but heads up, okay?" I thanked him, hung up, and sat there, my hands shaking. Proof? There was no proof because there was no affair. But Emma was still out there, spinning her web, and now Lila was in on it. I told Sarah that night, pacing the kitchen while she chopped veggies for dinner. "She's not stopping," I said, my voice rising. "She's got Lila lying for her now. What if people believe this crap?" Sarah set the knife down, turning to me, her face calm but her eyes sharp. "Mike, relax. Emma's unhinged, and Lila's just her attack dog. No one's got photos because there's nothing to photograph. You're freaking out over smoke." She handed me a beer, her touch steadying me. "But we need to shut this down. I'm calling Jen. She knows everyone, and she's got no patience for bullshit." Jen, Benny's mom, was a gossip magnet but fiercely loyal. If anyone could sniff out Emma's game, it was her. Jen came over the next day, her coffee mug in hand, her dark ponytail swinging as she plopped onto our couch. "Okay, spill," she said, and I did. Everything from the pool to the party to Emma's park confession. Jen listened, sipping her coffee, her hazel eyes narrowing. "That chick's a psycho," she said when I finished. "I heard from Claire's sister that Emma's been telling people you stalked her after she turned you down. Lila's backing her up, saying she saw you two sneaking around in college. It's all lies, right?" I nodded, my gut twisting. "Yeah, total lies. We were friends, that's it." Jen smirked. "Good, because I've got dirt. My cousin works with Tom. He's been screwing his assistant for a year. Emma knew, and she's been playing victim to flip the script. I'll spread that around, see how she likes it." I hesitated, rubbing my neck. "I don't know, Jen. I just want this over, not more drama." She leaned forward, her grin wicked. "Trust me, Mike. She's throwing punches. You've got to hit back or she'll bury you." Sarah nodded from the kitchen, chopping carrots with a little too much glee. "Jen's right. Emma's not stopping unless she's exposed. Let's end this." I sighed, feeling cornered but out of options. "Fine. Do it." Word spread fast. Jen's network was a machine. By the next weekend, whispers about Tom's affair were everywhere, and Emma's sob story started crumbling. I ran into Jake at the grocery store, his cart full of beer and chips. "Dude," he said, clapping my back, "Claire's cooled off. Jen's rumor mill saved your ass. Lila's still bitching, but no one's buying Emma's crap anymore. You good? I nodded, relief washing over me. Yeah, man, thanks for the heads up, he grinned. Anytime. Just don't joke about my kid looking like you, okay? I laughed, the first real laugh in days. But Emma wasn't done. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. Meet me. We need to talk. E. My gut said delete it, but my head said closure. I showed Sarah, and she rolled her eyes. You're a glutton for punishment. Go, but I'm coming with you. We met Emma at a coffee shop downtown, her sitting stiffly at a corner table, a latte untouched in front of her. Sarah stayed by the counter, watching like a hawk. Emma looked up as I sat, her eyes tired but defiant. I heard what you did, she said, her voice low. Spreading lies about Tom. I clenched my jaw. They're not lies, Emma. You know that. Why are you still doing this? She leaned forward, her hands trembling. Because I'm alone now, Mike. Tom's gone, my friends hate me, and you were supposed to be there. I stared at her, pity mixing with anger. I was your friend, not your pawn. You broke that, not me. She flinched, tears welling up. I just wanted you to see me, she whispered. I stood, done. I saw you, Emma. I just didn't see this. I walked out, Sarah falling in step beside me, her hand slipping into mine. Proud of you, she said softly. I squeezed her hand, the weight finally lifting. I walked out of that coffee shop with Sarah's hand in mine, the morning air cool against my skin, but inside I was still boiling. Emma's words, I just wanted you to see me, kept echoing, twisting around in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I'd shut her down, walked away, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like I'd just dodged a bullet only to hear the gun click again behind me. Sarah squeezed my hand, her touch pulling me back. You okay? She asked, her voice soft but steady, her dark eyes searching mine. I nodded, forcing a half smile. Yeah, just done with her crap. She smirked, nudging me with her shoulder as we crossed the street. Good. Now let's get home before Chloe wakes up and trashes the place looking for his water guns. I chuckled, the sound weak but real, and for a moment I thought maybe that was it. Maybe I could leave Emma and her mess in the rear view. But life doesn't work that way, does it? 2 days later, I was at the office, hunched over my desk, staring at lines of code that might as well have been hieroglyphs for all the focus I had. My phone buzzed, rattling against a stack of Post-its, and I glanced at it, expecting Sarah or maybe Jake with an update on the Claire situation. Instead, it was a number I didn't know. The text was short. Mike, it's Greg, Tom's colleague. We need to talk. Meet me at the diner on 5th noon. My stomach did a slow flip. Greg? I racked my brain. Vague memory of a lanky guy with glasses at some company event Tom dragged Emma to years ago. Why the hell was he texting me? I almost ignored it, thumb hovering over the delete button, but something, curiosity, dread, I don't know, stopped me. I typed back, okay, and hit send before I could second guess it. The diner was one of those retro joints, red vinyl booths, chipped Formica tables, the smell of grease and coffee thick in the air. I got there 5 minutes early, sliding into a booth by the window, my knee bouncing under the table. Greg walked in right at noon, spotting me and heading over with a quick nod. He was taller than I remembered, mid-40s, with thinning hair and a nervous energy that made him look like he'd bolt if you sneezed too loud. He slid in across from me, adjusting his glasses, and got straight to it. I shouldn't be here, he said, his voice low, eyes darting to the door. But I heard what's going down with Tom and Emma, and your name keeps coming up. I leaned forward, my palms clammy against the table. What's that got to do with you? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. He licked his lips, glancing around again. Tom's been a wreck at work, drinking, missing meetings. Yesterday he lost it in the break room yelling about you, saying you're the reason his life's falling apart. He's got this file. File? I repeated, my mouth dry. Greg nodded, pulling out his phone and scrolling through it, his hands shaky. Yeah, he's been obsessed. Photos, texts, stuff about you and Emma from years back. He showed me some of it. College pics, you two at parties. Nothing crazy, but he's convinced it proves something. And there's more. He's got a PI tailing you. My heart stopped, then slammed back to life, pounding so hard I thought Greg could hear it. A private investigator? I said, my voice rising despite myself. What the hell for? Greg shoved his phone back in his pocket, leaning in closer. He thinks you're still after Emma. He's unhinged, Mike. I've seen him like this before, after his cousin's affair blew up his family. He doesn't let go. I just thought you should know. I sat back, my head spinning, the diner's chatter fading to a dull roar. A PI? Tom watching me? It sounded insane, but Greg's face, pale, twitchy, told me he wasn't making this up. Why tell me? I asked, my voice hoarse. He shrugged, looking down at the table. Tom's my boss. He's tanking our department, and I'm sick of covering for him. Plus, I met you once. You seemed decent. Didn't want you blindsided. He stood up, tossing a couple bucks on the table for the coffee he hadn't touched. Watch your back, okay? Then he was gone, slipping out the door like a ghost, leaving me staring at the empty booth, my mind racing. I didn't go back to work. I called Sarah instead, pacing the sidewalk outside the diner, the sun beating down on my neck. A PI? She said when I finished, her voice sharp through the phone. That's next level creepy. What's Tom's endgame here? I rubbed my face, feeling the stubble I hadn't bothered shaving. I don't know. Revenge? Proof I'm the bad guy? Greg said he's got photos, college stuff. Emma must have fed him something. Sarah was quiet for a second, then, we need to see Jen, now. She'll know what to do. I didn't argue. Jen's gossip network had already turned the tide once. Maybe she could dig me out of this hole too. We met Jen at her place that afternoon, a cozy split level cluttered with Benny's toys and half-finished art projects. She opened the door in yoga pants and a tank top, her coffee mug steaming, her hazel eyes lighting up when she saw us. Oh, you two look like hell. Come in, spill it, she said, waving us to the couch. I told her everything, Greg, the file, the PI, while Sarah sat beside me, her hand on my knee, grounding me. Jen listened, sipping her coffee, her expression shifting from amused to dead serious. Okay, she said when I finished, setting her mug down with a clink. Tom's lost it, and Emma's probably egging him on. My cousin's got more on him. He's not just banging the assistant, he's been skimming company funds. That's why he's unraveling. But this PI thing, that's war. We need to flip it. Flip it how? I asked, my stomach nodding. Jen grinned, a glint in her eye I didn't trust but couldn't look away from. We find the PI first. I know a guy, Danny, ex-cop, does security now. He owes me a favor. We track this creep, see what Tom's got, and shut it down. Maybe even scare Tom off while we're at it. Sarah perked up, her reporter instincts kicking in. I like it. I can dig too, check Tom's company, see if there's dirt we can use. I stared at them, my head pounding. Guys, I just want this over, not a spy movie. Jen laughed, sharp and loud. Too late, Mike. Tom's playing dirty. You either fight or get buried. Your call. I didn't want this. I wanted my quiet life back. Coding, Chloe's giggles, Sarah's teasing. But Tom wasn't letting go, and Emma's lies had lit the fuse. Fine, I said, my voice flat, resigned. Do it. Jen clapped her hands, already reaching for her phone. Danny's on it by tonight. Sarah, you work your magic. Mike, you just sit tight and don't do anything stupid. I nodded, feeling like I'd just signed up for something I couldn't control. Danny came through fast. 2 nights later, we were crammed in Jen's living room. Me, Sarah, Jen, and this stocky guy with a buzz cut and a leather jacket that smelled like cigarettes. Danny dropped a manila folder on the coffee table, his voice gruff. Pie's name's Carl Russo. Low-rent guy, works out of a strip mall. Tom hired him a week ago. Cash up front, no paper trail. He's been tailing you, Mike. Got shots of you at work, the park with your kid, even the coffee shop with Emma. My blood ran cold, my hands clenching into fists. He's got pictures of Chloe? I said, my voice shaking. Danny nodded, flipping open the folder. Grainy photos of me pushing Chloe on a swing, laughing, oblivious. Yeah, nothing juicy, just surveillance. Tom's fishing. Sarah grabbed the folder, her jaw tight. This is insane. He's stalking us now? Jen leaned back, arms crossed. Told you. War. What else, Danny? He smirked, pulling out a USB drive. Recorded Tom meeting Russo. Guy's paranoid. Keeps ranting about you and Emma. Says he'll prove it even if it kills him. Sounds like he's cracking. I stared at the photos, Chloe's little face smiling up at me, and something snapped. He's not touching my family, I said, low and hard, surprising even myself. Sarah looked at me, pride flashing in her eyes. Damn right, what's the play? Danny leaned in, his grin widening. I can spook Russo, pay him off or rough him up, your pick. He'll ditch Tom fast. But Tom, he's the real problem. You want him gone? You hit him where it hurts. His job. Expose the skimming? He's toast. Jen nodded, her excitement palpable. My cousin's got receipts, bank records, emails. We leak it, Tom's done, and this PI bullshit stops. I hesitated, my gut churning. This wasn't me. I didn't play these games, but Tom had crossed a line, dragging Chloe into it. Okay, I said, my voice steady now. Leak it, end this. Sarah worked her contacts. Jen fed the dirt to her cousin, and within days, Tom's world imploded. A local news blog picked it up. Anonymous tip about embezzlement at his firm, backed by hard evidence. His company launched an internal probe, and word was he'd been suspended. His affair with the assistant splashed across the rumor mill for good measure. Russo vanished. No more tale, no more photos. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Emma to call or Tom to show up raging, but it was quiet. Too quiet. Then, a week later, I got a voicemail from Emma. I was in the backyard with Chloe, helping him aim his water gun at a row of plastic cups, when my phone pinged. Sarah was inside, cooking, and I almost didn't check it. But I did. Her voice was small, shaky, nothing like the Emma I'd known. Mike, it's me. Tom's. He's gone. Fired. Left town. I know you did this. I don't blame you. I messed up. I get it. I'm sorry for everything. The line clicked off and I stood there, the phone heavy in my hand, Chloe's laughter fading to a hum. I felt empty, not relieved, not angry, just hollow. She was gone, Tom was gone, and somehow I'd won. But it didn't feel like winning. Sarah stepped out, wiping her hands on a towel, her eyes narrowing as she saw my face. "What now?" she asked, her tone sharp but tinged with that familiar worry she tried to hide. I didn't say anything at first, just held up my phone and hit play, letting Emma's voicemail crackle into the evening air. Mike, it's me. Tom's. He's gone. Fired. Left town. I know you did this. I don't blame you. I messed up. I get it. I'm sorry for everything. Sorry. The words hung there, frail and shaky, cutting off with a click that felt too final. Sarah stood still, listening, her arms crossed over her chest, and when it was over, her face softened, the hard lines around her mouth easing. She sounds broken, she said quietly, almost like she was testing the weight of it. I nodded, staring at the grass, the blades catching the last of the sunlight. Yeah, I didn't want this, not like this. She stepped closer, wrapping an arm around me, pulling me into her side, her warmth seeping through my shirt. You didn't start it, Mike. They did. Come inside, dinner's ready, and Chloe's about to declare world domination again. I smiled, faint but real, and followed her in, the weight still pressing on my chest but lighter now, like I'd shed a layer of it out there. Maybe this was over. Maybe. The kitchen was a mess of smells, spaghetti sauce simmering, garlic bread browning in the oven, the kind of comfort that usually grounded me. Chloe was already at the table, his water gun propped up like a trophy, his little hands smudged with marker from some battle plan he'd drawn on a napkin. "Daddy, I won the war!" he shouted, bouncing in his seat, and I forced a grin, sliding into the chair next to him. "General Chloe, huh? World's yours, buddy." Sarah set a plate in front of me, steam curling up from the pasta, and sat across, her dark eyes flicking over my face like she was reading me. "You sure you're okay?" she asked, her voice low, careful not to let Chloe catch the shift. I twirled my fork, nodding. "Yeah, just processing." She smirked, sipping her wine, that glint in her eye saying she wasn't buying it but wouldn't push. "Process faster. I'm not eating cold food because you're brooding." We ate, Chloe's chatter about his cup army filling the gaps, and I tried to let it pull me in, tried to sink into the normalcy of sauce-stained shirts and Sarah's dry jokes. But Emma's voice kept creeping back, her sorry digging at me, not because I pitied her, but because it felt like a loose end I couldn't tie off. After dinner, Chloe bolted outside again, yelling about a rematch, and I helped Sarah with the dishes, the clink of plates and splash of water a quiet rhythm between us. "You're still thinking about her," she said, handing me a wet pan, her tone matter-of-fact. I sighed, drying it, the towel rough against my hands. Not her, just how it ended. I thought she'd fight more, you know, not just give up. Sarah turned off the faucet, facing me, her hands dripping. "She didn't give up, Mike. She lost. There's a difference. She played her game and it blew up. Don't let her make you the bad guy now." Her words hit hard, and I stood there, the pan heavy in my grip, feeling them settle. She was right. Emma had built this mess, not me. Still, that night, I couldn't sleep. Sarah was out beside me, her breathing deep and slow, but I kept staring at the ceiling, shadows shifting as cars passed outside. I kept seeing Emma, college Emma, laughing over late-night coffee, dragging me out of my shell when I was lost after Dad died. I'd trusted her, counted her as family, and she'd turned it into a weapon. Tom, too, his anger, his PI, his unraveling. It wasn't my fault, but I'd carried it anyway. I got up, slipping out to the living room, the house creaking under my feet. I pulled up my phone, scrolled to her number, and deleted it, my chest tight as her name vanished. It wasn't closure, not yet, but it was a start. A few days later, I took Chloe to the park. He'd been cooped up too long, his energy a live wire, and I needed to clear my head. The playground was quiet, just a handful of kids and a breeze rustling the trees. I pushed him on the swing, his squeals echoing, and felt the knots in my shoulders loosen. Then Jake jogged up, sweaty from a run, his grin wide as he waved. "Dude," he said, catching his breath, "you're still standing. Jen's saying Tom's gone, fired, skipped town. Emma's off the grid, too. You good?" I steadied Chloe's swing, nodding. "Yeah. She left a message. Said sorry. Thinks she's done." Jake whistled, leaning against the slide. "Damn. Claire's still grumbling about the party, but she'll cool off. Lila's shut up, too. No one's buying her crap anymore. You're free, man." I laughed, soft and tired. Feels more like parole than freedom. Thanks for not bailing. He shrugged, clapping my back. "Never crossed my mind. See you around." The quiet stretched after that, days bleeding into a week, then 2. Jen dropped by one morning, coffee in hand, her gossip lighter than usual. "Tom's toast. Cousin says he's hiding out somewhere, licking his wounds. Emma's a ghost too. No one's heard a peep. You're in the clear, Dawson," she said, smirking over her mug. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Good. I'm ready for dull again." She laughed, sharp and bright. "Dull's overrated, but you've earned a break." I smiled, the first real one in a while, and felt the last of it, the dread, the waiting, start to slip away. But I needed to seal it. That weekend I called Jake, asked him to gather whoever'd still come, Claire, Jen, a few old friends who hadn't picked sides. Nothing fancy, just a night in the backyard, a chance to bury this for good. They showed up as the sun dipped, our patio glowing with lights Sarah strung up, Chloe racing around with a couple kids from the block. Jake brought beer, Claire tagged along with a cautious smile, and Jen rolled in with a grin, her energy buzzing. I stood by the grill, flipping burgers, watching them settle in, laughter, clinking bottles, the hum of life I'd missed. After a while, I stepped up on a chair, my hands shaky but my voice steady. "Hey," I said, loud enough to cut through the noise. "Thanks for being here. I know it's been a shit show. Emma, Tom, that damn party. I didn't mean for any of it. A stupid joke at the pool turned into this. I'm sorry it spilled over, but I'm done carrying it. I've got Sarah, Chloe, you guys. That's what matters. So here's to starting over." Jake lifted his beer, grinning. "To starting over," he said, and the others joined, a chorus of cheers and clinks rippling out. Claire nodded at me, her smile warmer now, and Jen winked, whispering something to the guy next to her. Sarah slipped up beside me, her arm around my waist, her voice soft in my ear. "You're getting sappy, Dawson. I like it." I pulled her close, Chloe crashing into my legs with a yell, his hands sticky from a popsicle. I hoisted him up, his laughter loud and wild, and felt it lock in, the end of the chaos, the start of us again. Emma's lies, Tom's rage, they were echoes now, fading fast against this. Looking back, I learned a hard truth. Words can spark fires you don't see coming, and people you trust can turn into strangers overnight. I didn't catch Emma's game early, didn't dodge Tom's mess, and it nearly took me down. But it showed me what's real. Sarah's strength, Chloe's joy, the friends who stayed. I'm not the same guy I was before that pool day, and maybe that's okay. So, what about you? Ever had a joke backfire big, or a friend flip your world? Spill it below. I've laid mine out, now I want yours. Thanks for writing this out with me.